Let me shift here, and I just want to talk a little bit about silence. Silence, my sisters and brothers, has many dimensions. There is a sacred silence, which is that silence out of which creative contemplation grows. It's a meditation on the word and the will of God. It's the silence out of which we meditate and get closer to God. It's the silence in which fervent prayer is born. There is a sacred silence. But then there's a seething silence that comes when you are quiet externally, but you've got a storm going on the inside. The late Dr. Howard Thurman called that a noisy quietness. But then finally, and here's the silence I want to get to, there is a sinful silence. And Adam's silence falls into this category because a sinful silence is a silence that comes over you when you ought to say something, but you don't say nothing at all. It is that silence that creeps in when you ought to speak up for God, but you sit there acting like you don't know what God said. My sisters and brothers, I fear that Adam was not only silent on that fateful day in the garden when a serpent showed up, but Adam has remained silent through the centuries. When Africans were captured and taken from their homeland, packed in the hulls of ships, sold on auction blocks, beat and killed and misused and kept in shadow slavery, Adam was silent. When Jews were persecuted, deported, and murdered by Nazis, Adam was silent. When Native Americans were slaughtered in the acts of genocide so their land could be taken from them, Adam was silent. When our ancestors were lynched and called boy and girl, even though they were full grown, when they were denied employment and equal access to resources, Adam was silent. And today, far too often, when our boys are shooting and killing each other on the streets, and our girls suffer from low self-esteem and give birth to children whose daddies won't stay around to take care of them, Adam is still silent. Sisters and brothers, there is a sinful silence among us when injustice is raging and we remain quiet. When people are aching, when people are hurting, when babies are crying and dying of hunger and not having enough love from insufficient care, and we remain silent, that is a sinful silence. When the church looks and sees what's going on in its communities, and not just in its communities, but what's going on right there in the household of faith, and we sit there and act like we don't know what's going on, that is a sinful silence. And let me suggest that there's a time when silence is sinful. And here in the text, we see a snake talking to Adam's wife. Adam remains silent. Adam should have said something. My sisters and brothers, the nation is waiting for somebody to say something. Go on, touch your neighbor and tell them you ought to say something. You see them boys on the corner, you ought to say something. You see what's happening with those sisters. I'm not talking about Pookie and Ray Ray and them. I'm talking about the saints' children. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here today. You ought to say something. The classroom is waiting for somebody to say something. Youth violence is waiting for somebody to say something. Every community, every city, every town, every home, every boy, every girl, every family is waiting for the church to break the silence. And if we don't break the silence, let me tell you what's going to happen. If we don't break the silence, we end up embracing the appeals of the serpent. What are the appeals of the serpent? Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. To go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That's the name of the Lord. Somebody gotta tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now. May not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it. But if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. Take away from you so you understand how to depend on else. Come on in there. 90.7 WTCC. Good morning. Welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African-American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 4 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. I want to thank Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up until the 9 o'clock hour with The Promise. You can hear The Promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best in gospel music. Good way to start out your Monday morning. Great way to start out your week. Interesting week it has been. Last week we talked about the Super Bowl halftime show. They're still talking about that even today. But as things crank up in terms of this potential attack on Ukraine by Russia and the potential intervention of America, I want to talk about the value of Black life to America.
because I can't help. Somebody asked me. I was doing a live last night, and somebody asked me about it, and I just said I couldn't help but think back to the many conflicts when terrorists were running rampant in Nigeria recently and kidnapping little girls and murdering folks. Couldn't help but go back to the genocide in Rwanda and the many times that America sat idly by and ignored Black death. And so y'all have to excuse me if I'm having a level of difficulty empathizing with or jumping on the bandwagon about America intervening in preventing tragedy in Eastern Europe among white Europeans when it has consistently ignored the genocide of Black people. And so I've named this program Black Genocide. America has never valued Black life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Tell a friend, tell somebody. The bishop is on the air right now. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, comment. You can even give. You can buy a badge on Instagram. You can check my cash tag in the comment in the description section on the other social media platforms. But whatever you do, engage in the conversation. 413-337-1867 is the number here. Once we open up the phone lines, for those who are in Twitter Spaces, of course, you can put in your request to comment within the Twitter space. But let somebody know the bishop is on the air. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. I always love to know where my listeners and viewers are chiming in from. So please let me know where you're chiming in from. Somebody on Instagram is telling me some music to play. Y'all know they shut me down on music. Good morning out of BC. Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, those of you that are on the gram. Those of you who are on Facebook Live, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're rolling in from. I see you, Chandra. I see you, Michael, Phyllis, Elder Myron Peters. Good morning to you, Mother Linda Green, Deacon George Lovejoy. Good morning to each of you that are on Facebook Live. And I got YouTube popping, I got Twitch popping, and today I even got TikTok popping. So good morning, TikTokers. You know, I rarely go live on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok right now. So good morning to each and every one of you. And good morning to all of you in the Pioneer Valley. 4,000 watts broadcasting in Western Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, across the Pioneer Valley. Good morning to each and every single one of you. Listen, tell somebody we're on the air. It's about to get crunk. You know, we got a lot to talk about. Stay with us. Don't you dare go nowhere.
Gratitude says everything about you. Gratitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Every day you get up, you could get back in. That's why they call it the present. And it's up to you how you earn that day. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift. So don't let the pain of your past bleed into your present and poison your future. Stop replaying the movie. Why did this happen to you? When it's done with you, be we got it. If it seems like you keep running into hitters, it's an indication that you're flying too low. So set your sights a little higher. Remember, eagles fly, rise themselves. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Allow your challenges to be a stepping stone to propel you into new possibilities. So be discontent with your past accomplishment. You're only as great as your last success. So maintain your hunger and your passion. Remember this, within every seed there is a tree, and every tree there is a forest. Within what you were born into, it's a living environment to prepare you for your ultimate purpose. It was not a setback, it was a setup. Your purpose and potential is bigger than your past, goals, or problems. Listen to your heart and let you Successful people will do the things they hate with the things they love. Much of life is about sacrifice. You gotta give up something to get something. Success is not about what you've accomplished, but it's what you have become. For it's a test that you pass in life which qualifies you for the next level. You have to be willing to face your challenges and overcome them. Most people ride 12,000 miles a year moving forward, but most activists are called when they move backwards. You gotta stay focused on what's ahead of you instead of what's behind you. It's your daily routine that determines your success or failure. Whatever you practice at is what you become great at. What's more important than being intelligent is having the right attitude. Respect costs you nothing, but it will cost you everything not to have it. So don't be too smart for your own good. Remember, hard head is off behind. What's more important than your five senses is common sense. The heart of fools is in his mouth, but the heart of a wise man is in his character. So don't sweat the small things. The empty or short temper is a long walk. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, and remember this. You gotta live long enough to know everything. Your character is what matters most. Once you relate with the bad reputation, it's hard for people to see you every day. A good name is worth more than all the money in the world. Your life is broken up into three parts. First you learn, then you earn, and then you return. You gotta get that.
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from and hid, but it just made me stronger and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. I was above their nonsense and made a liar of the devil. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me, He came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
All right, 90.7 WTCC. That was Rhonda Swan. I like what I see. My favorite jam by her, my sister. So y'all go and check it out anywhere you stream music. You can get that. All right, definitely check it out. All right, then check out my son T Swan. Wherever you stream music, you can get his stuff as well. And then you can even find me in there with some spoken word pieces. So um, go on and support, folks who are trying to say something positive, do something positive. 413 337 1867 is the number here. Once again, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Would love to know. Would love to know. Would love to acknowledge your place of abode. See, my daughter Whitney's in here from the Shy. Good morning. Good morning, nephew Tyrell. Good morning, Michael Moore, coming in from Ludlow. And to Chris, whoever you are, go to Hades with gasoline draws on. All right, Chris Fittner, who we fit in the block. Yeah, we fit in the block. Chris the Bitter Bittner. Good morning, caller.
Hi, Bishop. How are you doing?
I'm good. How you feel?
Oh, I feel good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Great to hear. Great to hear. I was calling. I wanted to know if I could talk in. I didn't really hear what was for today, but could I talk on the Ahmaud Arbery case and how we get to situations like that?
Very briefly, because I got to get into this subject matter I'm talking about in terms of the devaluing of Black life.
Oh, okay. Well, briefly, my daughter is a forensic analyst.
Okay.
And I just was, when people talk about how do we get into corrupt courtrooms where we get judges that are corrupt, lawyers that are corrupt, and how we get there. We start out with evidence and forensics and things like that. And right now, at her job, she's having a situation where her and another black that's been there for a while, they are being harassed by the 70 or something other white people that are there. And so that got me to thinking that when promotions are not done, harassment is done, and things of that nature, to keep that certain echelon all white, where promotion is not being done. So you can have somebody tampering with evidence, corrupt evidence, and then you go to the public pretender, and they have that evidence.
You said public pretender?
Yeah, I did.
Not defender, but pretender. I got you. I hear you.
Correct. And so then you get to the courtroom and have a judge like the judge in Louisiana who's an undercover racist talking that nigga stuff. And so I just want to talk on how that corruption level goes and how we're always going to be in the lower ring of things when it comes to starting out from, like I said, how it feeds from the forensic scientist to the courtroom to the lawyer to the judge. Gotcha. And how we get situations where you have innocent people in jail.
Yeah, it is a concerted effort. And you saw that running all through the Arbery situation from the onset when the former cop goes to the prosecutor that he worked with, and she decided she wasn't going to file charges at all.
Exactly.
You know, they had said, and had that video never surfaced, those guys would be walking around having dinner, harassing black people to this day.
Exactly, Bishop, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate your call.
Thank you.
1-333-37-1867. Good morning to each and every one of you. I see you, Dallas, Texas, in the house. I see Maryland in the building. I see you. I see Connecticut, First Lady Hightower up in the building. Good morning to each and every one of you, my brothers and my sisters. Appreciate y'all so much for vibing with me on today. I see Dubai up in the building. Good morning, Dubai, Maryland, Toronto, over here, Albuquerque, New Mexico, over here, another Toronto in here on IG. So I got my international IG audience. Somebody said they're from corrupt Connecticut. All right, okay. I feel you. I hear what you're saying there. Corrupt Connecticut. Good morning to each and every one of you, repping your city, repping your town, up in the space. Listen, here's the deal. It was some years ago. It's a little hot in here today. I guess this tea I'm drinking, man. Some years ago, there was a case for charging the American government. I believe it was in the early 1950s, for charging the American government with the genocide of black people. It was a group called the CRC, the Civil Rights Congress, and they had something called "We Charge Genocide." It was a historic petition to the United Nations for relief from a crime of the United States. At that time, they used the language "the United States against the Negro people." So the notion of the genocide of black people is nothing new. The CRC, of course, was attacked. They were accused of exaggerating racial inequality, and the pressure that was put on the CRC caused them to be disbanded in the mid 1950s. So, of course, as usual, what happens is the pressure put on by the American government against black voices of dissent. They come in, they infiltrate, they destabilize, they try to discredit and shut down black organizations. This is something that is constant with the U.S. government. The objective is brought a badge on the gram. My brother from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Appreciate you, brother. This was constant. It's like what J. Edgar Hoover did in the COINTELPRO, in the counterintelligence program of the U.S. government, trying to destabilize civil rights organizations and civil rights leaders during the 1960s. That's the same thing they did a decade earlier with the CRC, because they had the nerve to bring a case before the United Nations about the mistreatment of black people in these yet to be United States of America. The Equal Justice Initiative documented nearly 5,000 racial terror lynchings, and brought that historical evidence of genocide to life in an exhibit at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And if you go there, you walk under 800 steel columns that represent black Americans who were lynched. Some have the names of the persons on them. Some are printed with unknown, and the location of the lynching, because they couldn't identify the body. It's a memorial to Black death, to the history that these white folks who keep talking about critical race theory are trying to erase. I'm going to be on Wednesday of this week. I'll be at American International College. For those of you that are in the 413, I'll be talking to a group of college students, and my lecture will be focusing in on the importance of knowing history and the danger of labeling American history as critical race theory and trying to dismiss it from the classroom. They really want the history of black genocide and black death to fade into a shadowy past. But even as the CRC did back in the 50s, there is a case for charging genocide that has, if anything, grown stronger and clearer since the CRC first brought its petition. Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Stephon Clark, every day, George Floyd. The news is filled with documentation of black people wrongfully killed by police, of black lives treated as though they had no value, of black lives being extinguished without accountability and without ever receiving justice. But the evidence of genocide doesn't just stop with outright murder. We have to also include in that equation the mass incarceration of black people, because it testifies to a prison industrial complex that uses black lives as fuel to feed its profit. Black people dying in prison. And you have to remember when they passed certain amendments to the Constitution to outlaw slavery, they had a caveat in there where they outlawed slavery in the United States and its territories, with the exception of those convicted of a felony. So in other words, if we arrest, charge you, and sentence you, and send you to prison, you're a slave. So slavery still exists in America, especially when there are 2 million people, predominantly African American, that are in prison. That's the modern day slavery. Get Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. That is the modern day slavery. You're correct, Michael Fanning. COINTELPRO is still practiced against Black Panther family members today, and against a number of folks. They just switched up the name when the Trump administration came into power. They under Jeff Sessions, the Department of Justice reprioritized and decided that it was no longer going to focus on anti-black extremism among white supremacists. They were going to come up with a new category, and they called them black identity extremists, so that they could justify surveillance and destabilization of Black Lives Matter organizations. It was nothing but modern day COINTELPRO, all over again. And we see it over and over. So mass incarceration is part of the Black genocide. It feeds profits, and so many Fortune 100 companies invest in the prison industrial complex. American Express, and we can just go on and on with the number of organizations and businesses that invest in prisons, because they're building prisons today for your child and your grandchild that's only in the 3rd grade, anticipating when they get older, they will be the commodity that fuels American profits from the prison industrial complex. Consider the generational harm of incarcerating Black people, who make up only 13% of the population, but over 30% of all arrests. Nearly 40% of all of those in jail or prison. 42% of those on death row. We see genocide in the generations of Black families who have been economically and psychologically destroyed by a justice system or an injustice system that incarcerated poor Black people for using crack cocaine while slapping the wrists of white professionals who used powdered cocaine. I mean, we see it over and over again. We see that hypocrisy continue today as opioid is deemed an epidemic and a public health crisis because of its disproportionately white users who are treated as addicts that are in need of treatment. But when it came to Black folks and crack and heroin, they built prisons, they passed 3-strike laws, minimum and maximum sentencing, and told black folk, just say no. That's how they handle it. That's all part of black genocide in these yet to be United States of America. Let me bring pro-black up in the Twitter space. Pro-black, you're up in here. You're on the air, sir. Ma'am, sir. All right. Unmute your microphone. Those of you that are in the Twitter space, once I click that button, you got to speak so we can flow. Pro-black going once, going twice. All right, we got to move on. 413-337-1867. Put your request in the Twitter space. Once again, if you're in the Twitter space, once I click on you, you got to move fast to unmute your mic and get to talking so we don't have dead air as we're trying to flow with this conversation. The black genocide, we see it as the U.S. government devises ways to profit now from the legal marijuana industry. Most of these states have now legalized marijuana, and former law enforcement officials, retired judges, retired prosecutors, retired police officers are investing in the legal cannabis industry after they spent years locking up thousands of black Americans, many of who are still rotting in prison for possessing or selling weed to support their families. Think about the logic of that. I had an opportunity to speak to Michael Thompson several months ago. He called me through his agent to thank me for advocating for him while he was in prison. He was a black man who was arrested for selling 3 pounds of weed. He got sentenced to 40 to 60 years in prison in Michigan. Michigan legalized marijuana. So while Michael Thompson was rotting in prison, former law enforcement officials who put people like him in prison were making money, getting licenses to sell weed and making money off of cannabis after locking up black people for years. Michael spent 25 years in prison. His sentence was finally commuted, but he spent 25 years in prison for 3 pounds of marijuana. His mother died while he was in prison. His father died while he was in prison. His brother died while he was in prison. And this is just his story. How many other black lives and black families were destroyed over marijuana, while the white folks who destroyed their lives are now making money off of the same product that they used to destroy the lives of so many black people? We see black genocide in the masses of black Americans who've been forced or coerced into felony convictions or plea deals, costing them the basic essentials of a successful life. They're killing us softly. Consider the consequences that follows a felony label on somebody. And of course, that disproportionately affects black people. Trumped up felony convictions and plea deals have left thousands, tens of thousands of Black Americans unable to vote, unable to access housing, unable to hold a wide range of jobs from being a nail technician to a child care worker, unable to purchase life insurance that has basically rendered them like the Walking Dead. This is Black genocide in these yet to be United States of America. Yes, exactly. Plea deals are evil. But Black folks are forced into plea deals because they can't afford a lawyer. They're afraid of this all-white jury that they're sure will convict them. And getting 5 years sounds a whole lot better than potentially getting 25 years. So they cop a plea. Even some of those who are innocent, they cop a plea rather than face the injustice system, where they may find themselves incarcerated for long periods of time. We see the Black genocide in the rampant environmental racism that continues to threaten the lives of Black people, particularly in low-income neighborhoods across the country. The most polluted zip code is in Michigan, 48217. It is the most polluted zip code in America. Did y'all hear what I said? 48217. Anybody from the 48217 up in here on any of these social media platforms? It is the most polluted zip code in America. And guess what? It's 85% Black. 85% Black. Why am I not surprised that the most polluted zip code in America is 85% Black? Isn't it ironic that hundreds of thousands of Black people are in prison for selling small amounts of drugs because prosecutors and judges maintained that they were poisoning the community? They were poisoning the community. Small amounts of drugs, they're poisoning the community. Got to throw them away. But yet, when it came to Flint, Michigan, where the entire community was literally poisoned, not one public official guilty of poisoning Flint, Michigan was punished. It tells you how much they really care about Black communities being poisoned. Because when it came to children getting elevated lead levels that affected their development, when it came to Black folk dying in Flint over poisoned water, they didn't hold accountable any of the public officials that were guilty in that horrible scenario. The sheer hypocrisy. I mean, just consider all that I just kind of laid out in a very short window of time. That in and of itself is enough evidence of genocide. And if you think that is not enough evidence of genocide, consider the United Nations definition of genocide. Because I know there are folks who think I'm using too strong of a language. You know, they don't want you to call America racist. They don't want you to talk about this kind. They don't want you to use the term genocide, but we need to just speak the truth. The United Nations definition of genocide: preventing births or forcibly transferring the children of one group to another. There's documented evidence of how Black people have been sterilized without their knowledge. or against their will for decades and are still coerced into sterilization to reduce a prison sentence. For much of the last century, a majority of states carried out eugenics laws that resulted in the sterilization of nearly 65,000 Americans. This is the stuff you don't hear about. You're not going to read it in USA Today. You're not going to see it in Time magazine. Most often, these were black women. In California, over 200 incarcerated women were sterilized within a 9-year period, according to the Center for Investigative Reporting. And as recently as 2018, a Tennessee judge offered to reduce criminal sentences by 30 days for individuals who agreed to sterilization or long-term birth control implants. Think about that. A white judge telling black women, I'll knock a measly 30 days off your sentence if you agree to be sterilized so you can't have no black babies, so we can reduce the number of black people in this nation. That's genocide, ladies and gentlemen. These are things that are happening in America. These conservative white folks that tell you about sterilization in Africa and all that kind of, that stuff is happening to black people in America. Okay? It's happening to black people in America. Black children are much more likely to intersect with social welfare than white children, where they're likely to end up in foster care or adopted, raised by an ethnic group that is different than their own. In New York City, 53% of children in foster care are black, even though only 23% of children in the city are black. Let me say that one more again. Only 23% of children in New York City are black, but 53% of children in foster care in New York City are black. Black children are 3 times more likely to be removed from their homes across the nation than white children. And in many instances, the crime that led to their removal is their parents' poverty, a condition imposed and fostered by this society. You're going to take folks' children because they're poor. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. I put up a post the other day that said this: poverty is a choice, but it's a choice of the powerful and not those who live in poverty. Yeah. In order for there to be filthy rich folks who can go off into space for a weekend fun, there have to be poor folk. Yeah. Yeah, this American capitalist system fosters poverty. And in most instances, those who suffer poverty look like me. And so you, as a rationale for taking children and putting them in the foster care system, you use the socioeconomic status of the parents. So if the majority of people who live in poverty are black people, who are going to be the majority of those in foster care? That's why 23% of children in New York City are black, but over 53% of those in foster care are black. The physical, financial, mental, and spiritual deaths inflicted on black people are evident everywhere. In substandard schools, in food deserts that leave black communities without food to survive and thrive, in impoverished neighborhoods that are subject to polluted water and polluted air. The use of the word genocide is only shocking to those who lack a knowledge of our history and an awareness of the circumstances around it, or those who are trying to deny the history of America. We need to hold a mirror to America's face, because this nation can and must do better. But it's like the CRC members declared over 70 years ago. We ought to charge America with genocide. It's a clear-cut case. America has always devalued black life. For as long as it has existed, black life has been valued and devalued to varying degrees. Former First Lady Michelle Obama, in her speech at the Democratic National Convention, she said the story of generations of people who left the lash of bondage, the shame of servitude, the sting of segregation, but who kept on striving and hoping and doing what needed to be done. And that she wakes up every morning in a house that was built by slaves. It was powerful. So when we begin to talk about Ukraine, which is in the news, and I'm not going to argue the merits of whether or not military intervention is necessary in Ukraine. I'm not going to argue the merits of how it may affect America if Putin invades Ukraine. What I am going to argue is this. If Ukraine were a nation in Africa or the Caribbean, if Ukraine were Haiti or Nigeria or some other place where the dominant makeup of the people were black people, America would care less. Would care less. But because it's in Europe, because it's an Eastern European nation, 80% are Ukrainian, 17% are Russian. So because it's a European nation where 99% of the people are white, it matters. And the clearest example I can give of this in our lifetime is how America ignored genocide in Rwanda. I mean, the media ignored it. Literally, the streets of Rwanda were being filled with corpses. Filled with corpses. And the world stood by and did nothing. The United Nations, the United States had the intelligence and knew what was going on. And they did nothing. Matter of fact, the United Nations had already had peacekeepers deployed in the country. The UN Security Council prevented its troops from getting involved. And over the course of 100 days, over the course of a little over 3 months during the spring, nearly 1 million Rwandans, mainly Tutsis, were murdered by the Hutu militia. There have been experts that have for years been investigating the actions of the international community, and it's clear that there was sufficient warning to have prevented the genocide, to have significantly reduced the number of victims, the number of lives that were lost. President Bill Clinton, who y'all called the first black president because he played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, he knew Rwanda was being engulfed by genocide, but he buried the information to justify America's inaction. There are now documents that have been declassified and made available that prove this. Senior officials privately used the word genocide within the first 2 weeks from the start of the killing. They knew it was genocide, but they chose not to use that term publicly because the president had already decided that America was not going to intervene. Do you think for a moment that senior government officials would be sitting around admitting that genocide was happening in some European nation? They would be sitting around doing nothing? Of course not, because you see America already talking about what it plans to do and how it's strategizing to counter Putin potentially invading Ukraine. They're already talking about it, and the invasion has not even happened. Imagine hundreds of thousands of white bodies laying in the streets in Eastern Europe and the president twiddling his thumbs pretending it ain't happening. That's what happened when black folk were being murdered by the hundreds of thousands in Rwanda. Government was complicit, the president was complicit, the military was complicit, governors were complicit, the media was complicit, the white world was complicit. United Nations did nothing. Intelligence reports that were obtained using the U.S. Freedom of Information Act show that the cabinet and the president had been told about a so-called final solution to eliminate all Tutsis before the slaughter reached its peak. They knew what was happening. So excuse me. And I know you're going to say, Bishop, that happened in the past. Forget about it. No, I'm tired of y'all telling black people to forget about the pain and the trauma and the wickedness that we have endured in this world and act like it doesn't exist. Especially when y'all don't forget nothing. July 4th is going to roll around. Y'all going to put on tri-cornered hats and white wigs and shoot off fireworks talking about remember 1776, but then you don't want us to remember slavery. When we were slaves, enslaved in 1776. No, we're not going to forget about what happened in the 90s in Rwanda. While you're talking about intervening and potentially risking American lives to save the lives of white people in Eastern Europe. You want us to forget about nearly 1 million black Africans that were slaughtered while the United States sat idly by and did nothing. Hell no, we're not going to forget about that. No, it took the Hutu death squads. If you haven't read up about the slaughter of Rwanda, you need to know. It's a cautionary tale. You need to understand that part of American history. It took the death squads 3 months. 3 months. They had murdered over 800,000 in 3 months. Over 800,000 people murdered in 90 days. Clinton and his senior officials knew the scale and the speed of the killing. They knew what was happening. And a simple apology and a simple, my bad, a simple, yeah, it's the one thing I regret. I didn't act on Rwanda. No, bruh. Nearly 1 million people died. This ain't a my bad. You know, I mean, come on, man. My bad is when you bump into me. Not when nearly 1 million of my people get slaughtered and you do nothing. I'm not going to apologize for being passionate about this. But that's what I feel like when we start talking about Ukraine, and you know, and I can't get passionate about, okay, let me see, America wants to intervene to make sure that a white Eastern European nation doesn't get invaded by another predominantly white nation. I'm not going to ignore how they responded when it came to an African nation. I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to ignore America calling the opioid epidemic a public health crisis and having a kind, gentle approach toward white addicts when it built prisons and passed laws, intolerable laws, to mass incarcerate black people who were hooked on heroin and crack. I'm not going to ignore the disparity that exists. Some of them who are still in prison. I'm not going to ignore white former law enforcement officials investing in the cannabis industry and making millions of dollars after they locked up black people, some of whom are still rotting in prison today because of marijuana sentences. I'm not going to ignore that disparity that exists in this nation. So yes, black genocide is what America is guilty of. I charge America with black genocide. Kind of like Malcolm said, I charge the white man for being the biggest murderer on earth. And so the CRC charged them back in the 1950s. They need to be charged again because they are guilty of the genocide of black people and the devaluing of black lives. Listen, before we get off WTCC, register for the Lift Every Voice lecture series. It's popping off tomorrow. Ida Rodriguez is going to be here tomorrow in the city. If you are coming in person, register. Go to, somebody put it in the chat section, focusspringfield.com/LEV 2022. focusspringfield.com/LEV 2022. You need to register. It's popping off tomorrow, February 22nd. We've got Dr. Aubrey Hendricks on March 8th, and then we've got Eaton Thomas on April 19th. You want to be there. We've got song, we've got dance, we've got spoken word, we've got an award presentation, and we've got Ida, who is going to be in the house on tomorrow. You want to be a part of the Lift Every Voice lecture series, our 12th annual It's going to be live. Listen, getting ready to go into Justice and Flow. So for those of you who are listening on WTCC and you want to continue the conversation, come on over to social media. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitch. We're on TikTok. So get on over here. Come on. Let's continue the conversation. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember God loves you, and so do I. Social media audience, we'll be right back. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's good?
Life. Everything is good this morning. Good morning, Mother Green. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. If you have a daughter, I'm asking you to have your daughters call in. Well, not call in, but listen in today. This show is dedicated to mothers and daughters.
Oh, so y'all just gonna kick me off then?
We're not excluding daddies. But
Nah, sound like it.
this show is special to mothers and daughters.
Sound like it to me.
No, we're not excluding daddies.
I need to just.
There would be no children.
I need to
sons and no daughters
here
without fathers. Like I have a great reverence and respect for fathers. So
I need to just disappear like that. Bam.
Little sis. No, I don't need you to disappear, but you always do anyway. You probably will today. Good morning, Brother Michael. Good morning, everybody. Please stay tuned. If you have a daughter and she's able and available to listen in today, please have them listen in. I think this is going to be a special show. I think it's going to be a special show. It's going to be a bit of a surprise to my husband because I did not tell him about it ahead of time.
I already know. I already see who's backstage.
Okay, you already see who's backstage, but you don't know. You don't know what's going on. Nobody does. Just me, because it's just in my brain and in my spirit. But definitely, this show is special to mothers and their daughters. Special to mothers and their daughters. Hey, Whit. I was gonna call you. I'm gonna see how today goes, because we might need to expand this topic today. Hey, baby, how you doing? Bishop, you gonna hang with us until you see what's going on, and then make your decision as to whether or not you want to disappear.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, good morning, everybody. So let me, I guess give the intro to the show today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for another time in the after show with Justice and Flo, which is another name for Bishop and myself. So we've been doing this for a little while now, and
AKA Queen and Slim.
Anyway, we didn't decide on that name. We didn't like that name. I was trying to figure out who Slim was.
Who's we? Well, I I'm not Queen.
I was trying to figure out. I knew who Queen was, but we was trying to figure out who Slim was. So, but anyway, everybody, again, thank you for joining us for another edition of the show. I just want to preface today by saying this, that it may seem like everything is planned at the last minute, but the show actually is not. I pray about the show, and I really do believe that the Lord kind of tells me and leads me in what the topic should be. And I don't know about you, but and I have been getting some good feedback from people about various shows, and learning together, and certainly providing information that maybe has never you didn't have before. So it's really about us just growing together and learning together. But today is really, really, really special to me. I've been asking those of you who have daughters to listen in, with it being Black Truth Month or Black Cultural Month, anything but Black History Month, because I can't say history, because when I think of history, we think of the whitewashing of history. So with it being Black History Month, or Black Cultural Month, and Black Truth Month, today, I really want to talk to Black mothers and daughters. As we know, it's difficult coming up in America as a Black person, male or female, woman or man, or whatever. But I wanted to kind of deal with our relationships today. So I'm encouraging, regardless of your race or your racial identity, I'm encouraging the mothers and daughters to join us today, because I'm sure that regardless of your cultural background, that you may be able to find yourself kind of in our topic today. So, Bishop, you can go ahead and bring one of our daughters up. You can bring our guest up for today. Look at her. You been hearing me? Have you heard everything? Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that she decided to do this. I'm surprised that she's decided to do this and join me this morning on the show. But I think it's a real indication of where we are in terms of our relationship. So let me say this first to you, baby. Again, happy birthday. You just celebrated. Can I tell your age? Is that okay? No?
You might as well now.
Might as well. Okay, so happy 34th birthday. I can't believe I have a 34-year-old. I just cannot believe it. But happy 34th birthday. I'm really, really, really proud of you, really happy for you. And I just wanted to make sure that I let you know this birthday. Because we missed some in the earlier years. We missed some birthday celebrations. But, I'm definitely trying to make up for all of that now. So I thank God that we had an opportunity to do so. So again, thank you for joining me today, Shannon. I wanted us to kind of have a honest and certainly authentic conversation. So let me give you a little bit of background because everybody's clueless except for me right now. Um, so I work as a full-time therapist, and basically just about every single one of the families that I work with, they have a lot of dysfunction in their families, and mostly a lot of dysfunction in their parental and certainly child relationships. And I found myself here lately certainly trying to encourage a lot of adult daughters and mother relationships that are highly stressed out, that are certainly in the height of maybe their dysfunction or stress or tension, and some horrible things have started to kind of come out of those relationships. But I'm always encouraged because we've had some tough times in our relationship, but we have a beautiful relationship today. And so, because of that experience that we've had as mother and daughter, I kind of, know that things can, certainly work out, and things can certainly, turn around in those relationships, in those really important relationships between a mother and her daughter. So that's part of the reason why I had you here today, or I got you here today. But before we kind of get deep into, some things, I wanted us to do like a little bit of an icebreaker first, so we can try to make it a little bit light, or whatever, and then we can, try to have some more conversation. All right, so everybody's telling you happy birthday. There's a lot of people. I don't know if you can see them, Shannon. Well, there's a lot of people telling you happy birthday.
Thank y'all so much.
Okay, so here's the icebreaker. So I'm gonna ask you, just a couple of little questions, and I just need you to answer with the first person or thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
Favorite movie?
My favorite movie?
Yeah.
It's
your favorite movie.
probably Waiting to Exhale.
Waiting to Exhale? I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have guessed that. Okay. Favorite author?
Toni Morrison.
Oh, now that I probably would have guessed. Okay. Most recent book that you read?
Most recent book that I read was the sequel to The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier.
Sister Soldier. Okay.
Too bad you missed her when she came to the lecture series.
Too bad.
She did? I thought she was here. She wasn't here?
No, I got a picture with the other daughters and Sister Soldier.
Oh, okay. I thought Shannon was here too. Okay. Favorite thing to do?
Sleep.
Look, I promise y'all, I did not do this on purpose, but I hit my iPad and look whose information popped up on it.
What? Sister Soldier?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. We can't really see it. Okay. Favorite actor?
Actor?
Actor. It can be male or female, you know, or I mean, it can be both.
All right. Regina King.
Regina King. Okay. I might have guessed that.
No, you wouldn't.
I might have guessed that.
Yeah.
Favorite genre of music?
Favorite genre of music is R&B.
It's not trap music. No,
that's like in the running.
Oh, it's in the running. Okay. All right. I think I know this one for sure. Favorite TV series?
Different World.
Whitney said she knew who your favorite author was because Sister Soldier been your favorite since y'all were kids, since y'all was little, which is true. Okay. If you had all the money that you needed, what would you do?
Stuff she knew.
I was about to say that I needed, like all the money I needed. I would do everything I need to do.
You know, like if you had all the money that you wanted, maybe that's a better way to put it.
If I had all the money
that you wanted, what would you do? Oh, Toni Morrison. That's right, Whitney. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If I had all the money that I wanted, what would I do? I'll buy you a house, Mama.
I know. See, I was looking out for her mama. Always looking out for her mama. Okay. So, I think I probably would have got about an 80 on that if I was being quizzed. I think I probably would have got about an 80.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I probably would have missed the favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have missed the favorite actor. Okay. You know, although I would have thought of Regina King somewhere in there, but you know, I probably would have missed those two. Okay, so I already kind of said, you know, why I feel like I felt led in my spirit to have this conversation with you today. And I also am starting to feel like this might be something that we need to expand, you know, later on, and maybe even, you know, do something together, or put something together and bring the other daughters into it. And again, just having authentic conversations about the dynamics of mother-daughter relationship, but also, you know, because I'm not just a biological mother like I am to you and Driscoll and the boys, but you also know I'm also, which we don't necessarily like to say this, but I'm also a stepmother, and you have siblings in that way as well. So, you know, maybe eventually that'll be part of the conversation that we'll have in the future. But today, I really felt led, you know, to talk to you because for me, you're my oldest child. And you said this, and you say it to me, you know, every chance you get, you say that I made pretty much all of my mistakes on you, which is true. Which is definitely true, with you being my oldest. And I don't think I really realized, Shannon, how young I was when I had you. And I don't really think that came to light until you were talking to me about how young I was when I got married. And I had you before I got married. So that means that if I was young when I got married, I was super young when I had you. But I don't think that was really ever, how aware I was of how young I was when I had you. So I had you when I was 20, but I always say I was 21. Do you know why?
No.
I always say I was 21 because I turned 21 a month later. You were born February 19th, and I turned 21 March 19th.
Okay.
So I always just, you know, to make myself feel like I was older, I always tell people, well, I had my oldest daughter when I was 21, but in actuality, I was still 20. So you're right, I was young. And again, I don't think I realized how young I was until you brought it to my attention. And when Driscoll had Maya, because Driscoll was 19, so she was just a few months younger than me, when she had Maya, 19, she was almost 20, or whatever when she had Maya. So when I looked at her and I was like, she's so young to be having a baby. And I was like, wait a minute. I was just a year older. So I was young too. So anyway, so let's just kind of talk. Let's just kind of get into it. And I don't mean get into it like, an argument. Of course, I don't mean that. But
That goes without saying.
right. So I don't know. I don't even know how to start the conversation. I got some things written down here, but I don't know. I think I probably want to talk about the fact that you were my oldest. And it took me a long time. I think you were an adult before I realized something that I've admitted to you. And I think that this is my perspective on when the healing started between us. So, you were in Texas. You have been in Texas, for a while. And I don't know if we should share with the audience that you moved to Texas when you were 16, right? You were 16 or 15?
I was 15.
Yeah, 15. Okay, so you turned 16 a little while later. That was one of the most difficult times in my life. I think I probably told you that Mama said, send her out here to be with me. And it took me like 2 years because we started struggling when you were 12. We started struggling when you were 12 years old. And around 13, Mama was like, send her out here to be with me. And I felt defeated. And I was like, no, I can't do that. But then Mama said something to me when you were 15. And she said, why do you feel like a failure as a mother sending her to be with her grandmother? She was like, I'm part of your support system and I'm one of your most valuable resources. So why wouldn't you send her out here to be with me just to see if that would help her? And although it was hard for the family, it was hard for Daddy, or whatever, I feel like now looking back on it, it was one of the best things I could have ever did. And I thank God that it happened when it did, because you and my mother bonded, and had developed the kind of relationship now that certainly, serves, to, I don't know, I guess inspire you to continue to go on and do great things and be the best, woman that you can be. Anyway, I said all of that to say that you ended up there in Dallas. You stay connected. Certainly, you still my daughter, so we stay connected and everything. But you ended up, not wanting to come back. That's another conversation later, because I do want to eventually talk about, young people not wanting to come back to Springfield, where they was born and raised. But that's for another conversation. But anyway, long story short, I didn't realize it then, but I was in my darkest days at that time. So I think one of the things that I did realize, and this is what I want us to talk about, I eventually realized that you just wasn't struggling, and I assumed that you were, that you was just going through some changes, or whatever the case may be, and it was just causing a lot of tension between me and you. Now I realized that I was very depressed. You were at a stage of life where you probably needed your mother the most in life, probably needed your mother the most. So I was physically there, but I was emotionally and mentally absent. Would I be right in my description of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you expound upon, maybe if you remember, how that felt, for see your mother every day, but not have access to your mother because your mother is mentally, at a state to where she just wasn't there, but she didn't know it. I did not know it. I literally did not know I wasn't there for my children.
Um, how it felt at that time?
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely disheartening. Um, frustrating at times. Um,
What do you think you needed from me that you wasn't getting?
Quality time.
Quality time.
Mhm.
I did not expect you to say that.
Mhm.
Oh,
We just
quality
we
time.
were
Yeah.
we were just kind of going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
You were taking care of home and whatever else, and church,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just a big sister, so I just
Mm-hmm.
took care of my siblings when I had to, kept my room clean, and went to school. And we were going through the motions. We didn't have any time to bond or get to know each other. I was trying to grow up. It was a real crucial time too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in my teens, I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out a lot. A lot was happening with the kids my age, and I was trying to find my place in the world. And I didn't really, have you to talk to, or to relate to, or to, you know, bounce ideas off of. I just didn't. So I had to try to figure it out for myself, and made me very angry.
Made you very angry.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, it makes me sad still today. I had Do you understand that I really had no idea that I
Yeah, of
was so,
course.
yeah, now you do, right?
Yeah, because you were
But
still being mom. You were still taking care of our needs, making sure we were clean and fed and going back and forth to school and this, that, and the third. So you were still being mom. And I think I have to, today with my daughter, I have to check myself sometimes. Like, we're going through the motions. I get her up and get her to school on time with her lunchbox and her backpack and sign all her progress reports. And then I get her home and make sure her homework is done and all of that. But am I spending time with her? Am I talking to her? Am I asking her about her day? Do I know what she's been through at school? How the kids are treating her, what relationship she has with her teachers or whatever. So, I mean, I'm better for what we've been through. I think it makes me better as a mother because I realize or I understand where I feel like I was lacking something or I missed out. And so I try to make sure I'm available in that way to my daughter.
Whitney just said something. She said, "We love home, but it's too much pressure being the daughter of Talbert Swan and trying not to tarnish the Swan legacy." Ooh,
That
okay.
as well.
That's a, that's a whole lot. We gotta, we gotta bring that conversation to the surface. Thanks for saying that. Um, yeah. Okay. So mommy's trying not to get emotional, but I so thank God that this revelation was made, because like I said, we went for years not understanding what the root of the issues were. Like I said, people say, "Oh, well, kids are just that way," and she's just being a kid and this and the other. But it wasn't just that. It was not just that. You were going through things. You were growing up. That stage of life. Preteen and a teenager, and you was in middle school, and you're developing and socializing. Your social life is changing, and boys, and then you're being bullied and picked on, and called skinny and called, and all of that, and I wasn't there. And
That's
I
right.
wasn't there, but I had no idea that I wasn't there. So it was times when I found out certain things, like the kids picking on you at school, and then I would get upset, or whatever, and want to go and beat up the parents of the kids that was bullying, whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Certainly you was always very protective, but stuff that was going on that you was keeping from me, and I had no idea, but you was also acting out, and I thought it was me. I was taking things personally because again, I was so deep in my own depression, so deep in my own stuff that I couldn't quite understand what you were trying to communicate and what you were saying. Um, or what you needed, what you needed from mom. So anyway, I've had the opportunity, to say to you certainly privately, because that's what our relationships are. They're private relationships. But I wanna say it publicly that I am eternally grateful to you for forgiving me, for that time. Uh so fine. I didn't know, but that doesn't take back that cannot take back the hurt that you experienced. In that time in there where you needed your mom and you didn't have your mom and you didn't quite, know how to communicate with me again because of where I was. But okay, so we've kind of gotten there. It took us a long time. Listen, we need our audience to know, right? That it took us a long time to figure this out, didn't it?
I guess.
Yeah, it took us a long time to figure it out. Um, you know, I remember. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a period in there where you kind of tried to disconnect completely, and you just went your way, and I think it was at least a year before we made contact with each other. And I remember how painful that was. That was a very painful season, for me, because I was just at a loss. Because you know what it was, Shannon. I think I knew that I was always trying and I was always giving it my best,
You
but I
know.
had, you know what I'm saying, you know. But I
So
think, yeah. Go
so
ahead.
let me chime in there. And let me
Okay.
just preface, I think you're being a little hard on yourself, Mom, but I can appreciate that you are taking accountability for those areas where, I had issues growing up and you played a part in it. But I think that I don't want to say it took us a long time to get to this place. I think that once I had a daughter of my own and,
Mhm.
I got an understanding that there's no perfect parent. And along with motherhood, you have to deal with other aspects of life. I mean, you and dad, in my opinion, were married very young, 23 and 25. That's a very young age to be trying to commit your life to somebody. And take care of children and manage a household and work. You both went back to school and got all these degrees, and it's a lot. And so I understand that, and I think that um, every generation, the information they have is only what the generation before was able to give them, right? And so you're coming from, Granny's generation, and Granny had to get out there and get it, and then come home and feed y'all and send y'all out into the world. So that's all the information that you had, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
all that you could give to me and my siblings is what you had. And I think it's, each coming generation's responsibility to push the needle forward or to, keep the ball rolling. So I
Mhm.
understand that, or we understand now that there were some areas where, you could have been more involved with me as a mother or whatever. And you weren't. Um, in a lot of ways, but I know now, right? So I know better. So I know where I can do better for Roxy, and then she'll have what I'm giving her, and she'll
Mhm.
be able to do a little bit better for her children. Um, so I think that's important too. So I don't want you to beat yourself up about it. Like, you had a lot of responsibility
Mhm.
um, that I really couldn't imagine. You know, you and Daddy have several children and
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
That's a lot. So you guys
Mhm.
kind of grew up together and had to figure it out. And I mean, I turned out all right. I'm all right.
No, I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you and how you turned out, for sure. So, is it okay for us to talk a little bit? And if I ever, ask a question or go into an area you're not ready to, talk about yet, please, just let me know and we'll move on to something else. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the fact that you just mentioned that we have a lot of children between us, and we absolutely do. Um, but I want to talk about that you're the unique one.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that you are the one child that Daddy has that he adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the story, you know the background. You were young, you were a baby. You were a baby. And and of course your sister Erica, y'all are close in age, y'all are a few months apart, and everything. And Whitney and Erica used to, be around, and so they would be like, Daddy this, Daddy that, whatever, whatever. And before we had got married, you called him Daddy, and I almost had a stroke about it, or whatever. And he was like, listen, she gonna say what she hear my kids say, or whatever. And then after that, he was like, um, it's okay for her to call me dad because that's what I'm about to be. And he was like, as a matter of fact, you need to agree for me to adopt her so she'll have my name. And so, that was something that we talked about and certainly agreed upon before we got married, and
Mm-hmm.
everything was a whirlwind a romance, as people know, with me and Dad, and and blending the children and bringing the children together and all of that kind of stuff. It was difficult. It was not easy. It was very difficult, but one thing that your dad did and the Swan family did was they embraced you from the beginning, and to them you are theirs. Like,
Absolutely.
you're not adopted, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but you know that truth. You know that truth. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I mean, we could have pretended, you were so young at the time. We could have pretended and just X'd out your biological father, and all of that kind of stuff. We didn't want to do that. We always wanted to tell you the truth, so you've always known the truth of your situation, or your biological father, his family, and and all of that, and your adoption. But can you speak a little bit to being, the adopted child of Dad's?
Well, I have never felt like the adopted child.
Okay.
Um, I mess with Daddy sometimes and tell him that I really know that I'm his favorite because he chose me. That's how I
Okay.
feel. The rest of them, just came in this world by way of grown folks' activities or whatever. But he filed some paperwork, to
Yeah.
make sure I was his. He had to do a little work.
Hmm.
And the family's been great. I don't feel like an outsider. I don't. Yeah, I don't feel adopted. I'm
Hmm.
I'm definitely a Swan.
Definitely it's one.
Hmm.
Okay, so I got a little funny story about that, right? Most people don't know that you're not biologically a swan, right?
Right. Yeah,
And
right.
so, we used to be out, all the time, as everybody growing up or whatever the case may be. And people would see you and they would say, "Oh, that's a swan." That is a swan. Those swans look just alike. That's a swan. That's a swan. And that just used to tickle me sometimes, because you just people come into families. My grandmother was not my biological grandmother. People said all the time that we look just alike, or whatever. So people come into families, and it's love, I believe, that makes people look alike, or people think, oh, that's a swan. I could tell that's Bishop Swan's daughter. I could tell that's Bishop Swan's son, or First Lady Swan's daughter, or whatever the case may be, whatever, and sometimes the biological is not there, but people don't know. But it's the love and it's the family, I believe, and how those families interact, and show up in the world, that convince people that they are, that they look so much alike, that they twins, if you will. So it's environmental a lot of times.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, that's one of the things, man. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, well, actually, both of my mother-in-laws, or whatever, and my in-laws, my sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws, and all of that, so that's not anything that we ever have to discuss, because you've just always been embraced and accepted, and your daddy's, that's not a conversation he would have. You're his daughter. That's just that. And you're Auntie Frida's niece, and your Dee's granddaughter. Your Fred's granddaughter. That's just the way that it goes. Or whatever. So, yeah. So, thanks for sharing, that part. I know it can also be difficult, to blend into a family, or to be the adopted child of a family. I mean, it's not always roses and daffodils. But when there's love there, like it
Yeah.
was, for the Swans, whatever those hills and valleys are, you can get through them, you can work it out. And that's definitely what I've seen with you, and that's definitely what I've seen with some of the kids, some of the other children, and y'all are siblings. That's
Mhm.
just that, So that's the way that goes. So let's just have let's just kind of twist a little bit out of our relationship. We only have a few minutes left in today's show,
Mhm.
but uh and 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 maybe we can get back to it. But one of the things that happened with us, and I like to say that it's certain conversations that I have with you and I have with other people in our lives, and the kids have their love languages too. Oh, thank you, Tanisha, for saying that. It's hard being a young mom and figuring out survival, and then emotional needs go by the wayside. Oh, absolutely. Thank you,
Mhm.
Tanisha, for saying that. That's one of my friends. She has two daughters. That's one of my friends with two daughters. Two grown daughters. She got both of them are pregnant. She got her first two grandbabies that are on the way right now.
Congratulations.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, let me see, where was I going? I got a little bit off track. Yeah. So one of the things that I love about me and your relationship, right? First of all, I think that you are a genius, and the reason why I say that is because you are very bright. You've always been very bright, even as a baby. I remember you being, just easy to teach how to read, easy to teach how to write, easy to teach how to count, easy to teach shapes, just all of that kind of stuff. So you always have been very, very bright. Um, but the other thing that you are, and I'm gonna say that you got all of this stuff from me,
Of course you are.
of course, right? The other thing that you are is very creative. Like, and you get easily inspired, And the way that you use language, because you're a poet, I know you don't ever hear yourself called a poet, but you do. You write poetry. You like to read, you like to write. But anyway, you're very creative, and I love the way that you use language sometimes. Well, a lot of times. So that's a lot of the reason why sometimes, I mean, you're never my BFF, because I don't have, my daughter's gonna be my daughter, like you gonna always be my daughter. But sometimes I do, I call you like you my BFF, because you got an old soul, and you know how to use your words to really empower people. So you don't know this, but I always leave, even when we have a disagreement or a misunderstanding, and we disagree often, y'all. We do. We disagree often, don't we, Shannon? We disagree, and sometimes it get a little hot, and I got to give Shannon her space, or she got to give me mine, or whatever the case may be. But I always leave our situation feeling elevated. That's what I told my friend Tanisha about our conversations. Like, I always leave our conversations, or I always leave our situations feeling like I've learned something, or I know something more about myself. I leave with a little bit more sense of awareness. But I certainly always feel like you always try to empower me. Is that true?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, I always feel that. I never said that to you, but I always feel that. And I think that that's probably the reason why you got siblings and your dad, like we call you. It's supposed to be the other way around. Like, you're supposed to be calling us for that kind of
Yeah,
inspiration,
but y'all don't pick up.
empowerment.
No, just kidding.
Right, right. But I think that's a gift that God has given you. I think that that's the gift that God has given you. Anyway, we had this conversation recently, and I don't know how you're gonna feel about me going here, but I'm gonna go here.
I'm sure.
You was pretty much talking about how this generation, your generation, is a little bit different in their approach, in relationships, right? So we always have these, kind of big ticket discussions. And so I just was kind of a little bit fascinated by that. And then I heard your dad, I think it was your dad, somebody like your dad had said how, women are taking care of men today. And I just can't fathom the thought of that being acceptable, to where, these, it's a lot of relationships going on out there, right? Or it's a lot of sex that may be going on, and all of that, and having babies and all of that, right? All of that is going on, but little to no sometimes responsibility going on, right? And so anyway, what's your interpretation of how relationships were in my generation, or the expectation anyway, versus kind of yours, and yeah.
I can't just really speak to your generation necessarily, but I say this all the time. I think that, especially in our community, our relationships, I think, there was a time where that's really all we had was our love. That's what we had, was our partner, who we were gonna spend the rest of our lives with and raise our children with. And now there's so many other factors. There's all these material things. There's, status and fame and career, and just all these other things that play into the way we interact in our relationships, or the way we regard our relationships. And so, I mean, I don't know, from my perspective, it makes things different. yeah, we just have so much now. There's so much to bring to the table, and I just think when I think my generation is different, I just feel like I don't know. Like I don't know if we get a real understanding of marriage a lot of times before we get into it. I don't even know if we regard marriage the way we should because we're shacking now. We're having all the babies first, and then talking about marriage later. So I don't know. I just think that there's so many things at play that are a hindrance to what a relationship or a romantic relationship or partnership should be. Um, so yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah, do you think that a part of the disregard, you said disregard, you use that term, so I'm gonna use it uh again. Do you think that part of the disregard for marriage now is because people are no longer, like, there's a disregard, I guess, for the church now? Like,
Well, from
there used to be something that the church pushed, that was a
uh,
value of the church, or whatever.
but
But
you
yeah.
used to have to go right to
Mhm.
your leader for counseling and
Mhm.
all of that before marriage, right? You had to
Mhm.
really, or you were supposed to anyway, like get the understanding that you and that person were equally yoked and that you guys could build a life together.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and God will be the head of the relationship, but it's
Mhm.
just not that way anymore. We find somebody we like
Mhm.
or that likes us, and we just decide, oh, let's just do
Be
whatever,
together.
let's be together. Yeah. So I definitely think that we don't, take God's place in our relationships seriously enough.
Or we don't include God, you mean? And because people equate God to the church, and because they're resisting the church, you mean
Yeah,
they.
we're definitely not including God. I mean, I have, friends or people that are close to me that are, married and or in long-term relationships or whatever, and I don't hear a lot of, this is who I believe
Mhm.
or who I know God created for me. This is who I'm supposed to, glorify Him with and whatever. So
So I grew up in the church. You know that. I grew up in the church, but what didn't happen, like, my grandmother did not force feed the church. Like, she didn't make me resent the church. She, like, in other words, she had a healthy balance of the way that we would engage in the church, right? Like, there were certain days of the week I knew we was going to church. I knew we was going to church for Bible study, and I knew we was going to Sunday school. I pretty much knew that Sundays was for church. When I was growing up, Sundays was for church. You didn't plan nothing else for Sundays. You just planned to go and fellowship. You plan to go to Sunday school. You plan to go to Sunday service, and then you went back to Sunday night service. So the Sundays that was Sundays. And we did Tuesday and Friday night, but some Friday nights. But Tuesday was Bible study, or whatever. So we was pretty consistent about that. We fasted on Tuesdays and Fridays, pretty consistent about that. In the way that I grew up. But if it was a special occasion or this and the other, we would miss church, and we didn't feel like we had sinned against God because we went to a wedding or we drove out of town and we went to whatever, or whatever the case may be. So I didn't feel like church was forced on me. I felt like church was instilled in me, you know.
mhm.
I didn't feel like it was forced on me. I do feel though, and this is important to me that I say this. I do feel like y'all did not get to experience the church. I'm talking about your generation and my children in particular. that y'all did not get to experience the same church that I experienced.
I was just about to say you definitely forced it on me. No, I'm just joking.
No. If I've made you feel that way, I want you to talk about
I'm
that.
joking, Mom.
You know, because one of the things that I see now is, it's kind of like, I don't care what happens to me in life, right? If Dad and I had divorced, if I had moved, if I had, or whatever, I was gonna be in somebody's church. I'm still gonna be in somebody's church. I'm gonna be a part of a church. That's very much a part of my social system. It's very much a part of my support system. That's where most of my friends come from, is from the church. Whatever the case may be. I mean, it's like a huge part of my life. And so it was just natural, right, that we bring our kids up. And yeah, of course, when you're dependent, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm not asking you to go to church. You're going to church. You live in my home, so you're going to church. But how do y'all feel today? You're 34 years old. What's your relationship, to the church today? I mean, what do young adults your age and under, what do y'all feel about the church? If you grew up in the church and your parents brought you to church, what's the deal?
I mean, I can't really, I don't know how everyone feels.
Yeah.
Um,
You're millennial, so they got some research out there about millennials in the church.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. The church itself is the church. I mean, it's nice to have, somewhere to go and fellowship, or to be around others that are, seeking the same thing, or a relationship with God. But I can imagine it's a lot different from your generation. I mean, because we don't really even have to get up and go to church anymore. I'll be honest and say, more often than not, I'm on the streaming side of it. So I guess I'm not just really, I guess I'm virtually fellowshipping, but
right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that the church experience, plays such a big part, of our lives, like it did yours.
Well, what do you think about how important is church for Roxy? Roxy's her daughter. Everybody, she's 10 years old. She just turned 10 years old last month.
If
So yeah,
if there is opportunity for children's church, Roxy's all about it, right? But I mean, like I was at 10, just to go to church with the grown folks is no fun. Without a a lesson, or activities that cater to her age group. She's not really interested. So that's definitely something I have to consider when I do go into service. I try to make sure that there's opportunity for children's church, or that experience for her, so she can enjoy herself and get something out of it.
Now, when I was growing up, what's interesting about that part? When I was growing up, we didn't have children's church per se. We had a lot of children in church, right? And so the Sunday school for children was on fire. The Sunshine Band, for the children, we used to sing. I believe it was every first Sunday. We sung on the first Sunday, Communion Sunday. The children would sing, so they was the music ministry, for the first Sundays. And then of course, as I grew up, still part of those different ministries. And we coming up, whatever. We didn't have children's church. We still had to sit, with our families out in the pews and this, that, and the other, sit next to the adults. But we just engaged in the different ministries age appropriate, right? And so that's kind of how we grew up. We didn't have anything separate from the family. It was all, and telling the family, just, breaking off into different sections because of the ages, during different parts of a Sunday morning service or a Sunday evening service. But I definitely get what you're saying.
Hmm.
um I do. I get what you're saying, but I also see that the generations beneath me are not necessarily learning the Bible anymore. The- you know, they're not learning the stories of the Bible. They're not learning scripture. They're not developing, in their relationship with God. They're not interested in the social piece of the church, or whatever. And so that's hindering the possibility of developing, a relationship with God on their own.
Hmm.
So when I was a kid, I didn't know that these Sunday school lessons was gonna grow to mean anything,
Hmm.
or whatever, or was gonna inspire me to want a greater, more mature relationship with God. Now I'm certainly at that point I ought to be. If I've been in church my whole life and about to turn 55, I ought to be able to stand on my own 2 feet in my own relationship with God. And that's a desire for me, is for my kids, to have their own relationship with God. I'm not gonna judge whether or not you do this and you do it the way that we did it. But I do want you to have a relationship with God, and I want you to feel secure about who He is, as God in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's 11 o'clock. We can go on and on and on. I'm surprised that you kind of remain composed, because sometimes we can kind of get excited and passionate, or whatever. And but I definitely do thank you for coming on and joining me today. I'm gonna need you to come back. I'm definitely probably gonna bring Whitney and some of your other siblings, family members on, so we can have a greater conversation. I hope today has been something, for the listeners out there. Bishop, did you want to have any last remarks before we?
Yeah, I put this up because I know Shannon didn't like the pictures that I had.
I'm over here losing my mind right now. I'm losing it, Daddy. This is not cool.
Notice though that he only puts up pictures of you and him. I'm never. Look at me in the background on one of the pictures. I'm all the way in
Don't
the
even try it because I can go to your little social media page
Lord, let's
and
not
and you got
encourage.
you and her up. So don't even try it.
I
pictures.
don't I
Never,
don't even want
ever,
to know.
never, ever.
Let's let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's
Hi,
not do
Sister
that.
Lakeisha. Okay, let me see if I can read, some of the last comments, before we leave today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. A special thank you to my daughter, our oldest daughter. Well, one of our older daughters,
I'm
Shannon.
number 2.
Yeah, right. Number two. Thank you for joining the show today. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing a little bit of your heart. Mother Green said this was real good. Thank you, Mother Green. That means a lot to me. Mike Martin said when it comes down to the Christian church setting, I don't know what the okay, we have to be more creative. Oh, this is what Mike said. We have to be more creative and get out of the conditions of whitewashed superiority. Absolutely, absolutely. So we don't want to. What we don't want to do is pass down white superiority theology, to our children. So that wasn't even in question today, brother Mike. But thank you for that. Sister Nakisha said church is important for children too, but there should be programs for children age and developmentally appropriate to engage the youth. I absolutely agree. This was a great topic. Somebody said, let me see if I missed something. Whitney says she's in church every Sabbath. I know it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to bring Whitney to the conversation. Thank you, Mother Fields. Thank you for joining. All right, Shannon, did you want to have anything to say before we leave today?
No, thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I'll call you later.
Okay, all right, baby. I love you. Thank you for doing this for me.
No
Okay.
problem.
Mother Green said kingdom blessings. All right, Bishop. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope it was a blessing to you.
All right, listen. Once again, register. Lift Every Voice is happening tomorrow. I've been behind the scenes making other arrangements for that. It's kicking off tomorrow. Ida Rodriguez, HBO special out right now, Fighting Words, etc., etc. You want to be there on tomorrow at the Spring of Hope Church. If you're not going to be physically there, you want to be there virtually. You got to register either way. So go to focusspringfield.com/LEV2022 and register. All right. We're out of here. See you same time next week. Same bat channel, Lord willing. We'll be flowing with you again until the next time we talk to you and you talk to us. Always remember, God loves you. So do we.